right, sports fans, welcome back to another edition of Matrix Metrics. Here, as always, is your commissioner to recap what happened in Week 5 and to see if there's anything to look forward to in Week 6. Week 5 brought a lot of drama and some record-breaking performances, so let's dive in and see how it all shook out.
Here we go.
Most of the drama from Week 5 involves a certain team that got a little bit ahead of himself and now has a companion at the top of the standings.
I said it! I regret nothing! I regret nothing!
Now that we've seen Noah's team is human, and everybody in the league has at least one loss, the two groups behind the leaders see an opening in the door and are ready to pounce.
I ain't know my daddy, but I'm sure I shot out of his dick ready.
And that leaves us with two teams down at the bottom. And although optimism isn't completely gone, it is definitely getting harder to find.
We got a saying too. Yeah? It's a question, actually. Do you believe in miracles?
Next up on the Week 5 agenda is our weekly High Score Award. Scott is really barreling back from that 0-3 start and looks like a freight train from hell right now. So much so that not only did he win the high score for Week 5, but he also put up the highest points all time. There are not many people that can say not even a hurricane could stop them from putting up an insane amount of points. But Scott takes over the number 1 overall spot here from his former roommate and younger brother, Kevin.
New high score!
What does high score mean? New high score, is that bad? What does that mean? Did I break it?
Moving on to our Week 5 low score. We all know what happened here, but it sure is a lot of fun to review the film.
Now my dog's pissed at me too. He saw my scores.
Noah went from top of the food chain to bottom of the barrel this last week, but overall he's still looking pretty good, and it's nothing a little cheap whiskey can't fix.
How the mighty have fallen. Cheers to you fuckers. Salute.
And last but not least, we can't move on to Week 6 until we recognize Week 5's Bench Boner Award. This week's winner is yours truly, and I gotta admit, I've never been ashamed of a boner, and I'm not gonna start now. The one thing I will admit is that George Pickens has been a pain in my ass all year long. So it shouldn't be surprising that a guy that I've had on my roster for 2 days outscores George by 27 points. Luckily, I didn't need the points, and if anybody's in the market for a wide receiver, I have just the guy for you.
Oh, honey, careful. Your boner.
What do you want me to do? Cut it off?
All right, fellas, let's put Week 5 behind us and soldier on to Week 6.
Here's the pitch. Oh, shit.
We'll start off Week 6 with the only matchup that is 100% final. Daniel came into this matchup with his head held high as he held the 8-3 overall lead in this series against Randall, and even won last year's Wild Turkey Week matchup by 73 points. The celebration is going to stop here in Week 6, though, as Daniel's going to lose this one and drop to 1-5 overall on the season. The real standout for Daniel's team has got to be Chris Olave with the -1 point, as he caught a ball, fumbled the ball, and got knocked out of the game, all on the same play. With Cortland Sutton sitting on the bench with 15 points, Daniel has a head start on next week's Bench Boner Award. Next up is your commish versus Mitch in another matchup that is pretty much final, as Garrett Wilson would have to catch 29 passes and fumble every single one of them for Mitch to come back and win this thing. This win for the commish is going to knot this series up all time at 8 wins apiece. But Mitch can't slam the door on Week 6 yet, as he's going to have to hope for off nights from both Cody and Noah to stay out of this week's shot conversation.
Seriously, what is wrong with you three?
So much, Trace, I don't even know where to begin.
Next up is Cody versus Scott in another game that's final but not final, only this one has a little bit more meat on the bone. Both have a player still to go on Monday night, although an offensive player versus a defensive player is usually not the matchup you want, especially when you're coming from this far back. Scott owns the overall series lead 13-10 in this rematch of the 2017 championship game, and it's looking like he's going to stick one more in the win column here. Cody got a combined 1 point out of his 2 running back positions, but the good news is he didn't have a single active running back on his bench, so he's steering clear of the Bench Boner Award this week. That, my friends, is called strategy.
We want to tell you the stuff we're not good at, our weaknesses, so we're clear up front.
Next up is Noah versus Brian, and ever since Brian didn't get to name his team and started the season in 0-2 hole, he has really been on fire ever since. This is the second matchup between these two, as one of those first 2 losses for Brian was to Noah in a 14-point loss, and Noah owns the overall series record here, 4-3. A tight end and a defense probably aren't enough to overcome a 41-point hole and Aaron Rodgers, but Noah's just hoping they can supply him enough points that he doesn't have to take another shot this week. Either way, Brian's going to knot this series up at 4 apiece.
Hopefully I don't see you guys anytime soon, but until then, yeah.
And last but not least is this week's Game of the Week, Kevin versus Drew. This is also the second matchup of the year for these two, as Kevin took a Week 1 win by 2.5 points, but Drew owns the overall series lead 9-8. This matchup is going to be an interesting one, as it all comes down to James Cook, who didn't practice Thursday or Friday and was a limited participant on Saturday, and now he's questionable to even play on Monday night. To make this even more interesting, for any of you watching the waiver wire on Sunday evening probably noticed Drew picked up James Cook's backup to try and handcuff Kevin even more. Kevin's going to have to say a few prayers here for James Cook if he wants to remain in first place by himself, because a loss here would result in a 5-way tie heading into Week 7.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
All right, fellas, that does it for another edition of Matrix Metrics. After tonight, we will officially be 1/2 of the way through the season, and we can pretty much rule out 2 teams near the bottom out of this year's Wild Turkey race, which leaves us 8 teams fighting for 6 spots. The race is heating up, and I look forward to seeing y'all out there. May the best teams continue to win, and until next time.